At 11:47 p.m., Daniel sat in his car outside an apartment building he'd promised himself he'd never return to. The engine was still running, the headlights were off. His hands were shaking so badly he had to grip the steering wheel with both of them just to stop them from rattling. Inside his pocket, his phone buzzed. Her name. He didn't answer. Because he already knew that whatever happened next would divide his life into two parts. Before this night, and after it. Daniel wasn't a bad man. That's important to say first, not as an excuse, but as the truth. He paid his bills on time. He called his mother every Sunday. He worked 60 hours a week managing inventory for a regional warehouse, the kind of job that slowly erodes your soul without ever fully breaking it. At 34, Daniel's life looked stable from the outside, but inside it felt like standing still while the world passed him by. Every morning was the same routine: alarm, shower, coffee he didn't taste, traffic, work, home, sleep. And every night the same question waited for him in the quiet. Is this it? 3 years earlier he'd been engaged. Emily was supposed to be his future. They'd picked out paint samples, talked about kids' names, argued about nothing important. Until one night, after a long silence between them, she said something he hadn't been prepared for. I feel alone even when you're right next to me. She left 2 months later. Daniel told everyone it was mutual. It wasn't. Loneliness doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it shows up quietly, in empty apartments, in uneaten meals, in weekends with no plans. Daniel didn't spiral. He didn't drink himself into oblivion. He didn't post sad quotes online. He just drifted. That's when Lena showed up. She worked in accounting, a department Daniel had no real reason to interact with. But one afternoon, she stopped by his desk with a question she could have emailed. She smiled when she spoke. She laughed easily. She remembered his name. That mattered more than it should have. At first, it was harmless. Breakroom conversations, inside jokes about the broken copier, shared frustration about work. But loneliness is patient. And one night, after a company happy hour that went longer than planned, Lena sat next to him instead of across the table. Her knee brushed his. She didn't move it away. Daniel knew Lena was married. She never hid it. She talked about her husband in vague terms, never cruel, never loving, just distant, like he was already fading from her life. I don't think he sees me anymore, she said once, staring into her drink. Daniel didn't respond. That silence was his first mistake. From there, things escalated quietly. Texts after work, long conversations that felt deeper than they were. Moments where Daniel felt chosen again. He told himself lies that felt reasonable. Nothing's happened. We're just talking. I'm not the one cheating. But emotional lines matter. And eventually, Lena crossed the last one for both of them. She invited him over. Her husband was out of town. That's how Daniel ended up in his car at 11:47 p.m., parked, frozen, phone buzzing in his pocket. He could still turn around. He could go home, heat up leftover pasta, scroll mindlessly until sleep arrived. Instead, he shut off the engine. The stairwell smelled like cleaning chemicals and old carpet. Lena opened the door barefoot. She looked nervous too. They didn't kiss right away. They talked about work, about stress, about nothing. Then something shifted, the kind of moment you feel more than you see. When she touched his arm, Daniel didn't pull away. What followed wasn't passionate like the movies promise. It was awkward, quiet, human. And the second it was over, something inside Daniel collapsed. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor while Lena wrapped herself in a blanket. Neither of them spoke, because they both knew this wasn't relief, it was damage. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He drove home in silence, the radio off, replaying every moment like a crime scene. In the morning, the world didn't look different. That made it worse. At work, Lena avoided his eyes. By lunchtime, she texted, "I think we made a mistake." Daniel agreed, but agreement didn't undo anything. A week later, Lena resigned. Another week later, Daniel heard through office whispers that her husband had found out. Daniel never confirmed it. He didn't need to. Guilt doesn't ask for proof. It settles in quietly and stays. Months passed. Daniel expected karma to arrive loudly. It didn't. Instead, it came slowly: sleepless nights, loss of appetite, a mirror he avoided. One evening, sitting alone in his apartment, Daniel finally asked himself a question he'd been avoiding. Who am I becoming? Not who he was, not who he wanted to be, but who his choices were shaping him into. That night, he did something small but terrifying. He wrote an email to HR. He asked to transfer departments, not to escape punishment, but to stop pretending nothing had happened. He started therapy. He apologized to himself first, and slowly, painfully, he began rebuilding a version of his life that didn't rely on distraction. A year later, Daniel drove past the same apartment building. He didn't stop. He didn't feel proud. He felt honest. Some mistakes don't ruin your life, but they do reveal it. They show you where you're empty, where you're afraid, where you're capable of crossing lines you swore you wouldn't. Growth doesn't come from pretending you're better than your worst night. It comes from facing it fully and choosing differently next time. Because every life has crossroads, and sometimes the most important ones happen in silence. If you've ever stood at a place where one choice could change everything, you're not alone. This is Human Crossroads, and this was just one night.